Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the program. It's just gone 6 minutes after 8, and that, of course, means you and I are together for the next 2 hours right here on News and Views on Salam Media. And of course, I think that I certainly am on edge. Not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow, the 30th of June. There's been lots and lots and lots of information out in the public space. Some of it factual, others obviously is fake news. And the sad reality is that we're not sure what actually is fake and what is actually facts. And that is creating a lot of tension and possibly a bit of chaos tomorrow. Let's hope and pray that common sense prevails and that we here in South Africa manage to get through tomorrow without any violence, without any killings, without any undue drama. And a couple of organizations have banded together and they're trying to put out the correct information. They're trying to engage with the powers that be so that we don't have chaos, drama, conflict, riots, whatever else we think might go wrong tomorrow. And with a lot of people, I think what's on mind as well, top of mind, is the July 2021 riots. So please, God, let's hope that doesn't in fact happen. So we've had an urgent media alert yesterday from Siafana Sonke Action Group, and they are hosting a national press conference ahead of tomorrow's deadline and possible escalation of violence. And of course, that's happening this morning, I think around about 9:30. So let's get talking with Tessa Dooms. She's with the Rivonia Circle, and let's hear what exactly is going down. A very good morning to you, Tessa. Welcome to the program. Lovely to have you here.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. You've heard my introduction. Is there cause for concern? Do you believe that there are sections of our community who are beginning to go into panic mode simply because we know there's lots of factual information that has gone out, but there is also lots of fake news, and the fake news is always sensational. So where do we stand regarding tomorrow's March and March campaign and other such organizations that are joining forces with March and March?
Well, I think there's two things that we need to talk about in terms of what the consequences have been of the organizing that we've seen around the immigration issue. One is a active and ongoing and increasing humanitarian crisis. And I think that is one of the big focuses that Siafana Sonke has taken on as a group of over 100 organizations who've come together in order to help respond to this moment, and to respond to this moment with the values of social justice firmly as our guiding pillar. And what we have found is increasing numbers of people, and we've seen this in Durban, we've seen it in Cape Town, but now also seeing it in Johannesburg, who are leaving township and shack dweller communities, migrants who have been living in those areas and leaving those areas, reporting just general fear and anxiety because of things they've seen or heard, active intimidation, people knocking on people's shacks, people coming to people's stores, employers that are firing migrants, and people who are either willfully evicting migrants from places that they're renting, or who are being threatened by groups to evict migrants or suffer consequences. And then finally, we've also found people who come, who are fleeing areas because they've actually been assaulted. And we've seen cases of assault as well. And that has caused people, migrant communities, to reach out to their embassies. And we've seen, for example, in the case of, I think, a country that's probably doing their repatriation processes without much humanitarian concern. Is a country like Nigeria. We haven't seen a lot of people congregating, for example, outside the Nigerian embassy. But for the Malawian embassy, the Zimbabwean embassies, and consulates, we've seen throngs of people gathering either in front of those consulates or in different places trying to get the attention of their own governments, who are just not adequately responding to this moment as well. And so we do have, on any given day, tens, hundreds, or thousands of people convening and gathering, wanting to be repatriated. Many of these people, if they had their own resources, would be getting onto buses by themselves, but they don't have them. And this leaves us with mothers who are pregnant. Just outside the Malawian embassy yesterday, we counted over 50 infants below the age of 1 year old in a crowd of about 400 people who were gathered there. And so we really have a growing crisis. The trips that people are taking, especially the ones to Malawi, are 3-day trips if they get onto a bus. So people are waiting 2 or 3, 5 days even, trying to get into a repatriation process and then still have a long journey ahead. And so this is causing a lot of chaos. And it's compounded by the fact that also when we're trying to do these humanitarian efforts, we find that anti-migrant groups even show up at places where humanitarian support is being provided and provoke and threaten in those instances. So that's the one part of it. And then, of course, there is the second element of the question of the protest and mobilization, which I think we can get into as well.
Okay, let's talk about something you've just raised now. We know there's lots of aid groups all around the country trying to assist the migrants who are wanting to leave. They're doing sterling work. They're doing their best under very, very difficult circumstances. We've also heard in Durban, you spoke about infants under the age of 1 at these centers trying to get onto buses with their families, obviously, to get back home, wherever home is for them. But we've also heard of babies being born whilst they're waiting to get clearance to get onto buses, etc., to go home. And I think these were a couple of Malawian women in Durban at Sherwood Park that gave birth. There was an instance where I think they waited over 3 hours for medical help and an ambulance to arrive. So that's also one of the very serious issues. Apart from babies being born at these waiting centers, there are also other medical emergencies that happen whilst they await to board buses to go back home. What about the other very important issue that you've raised as well is what can our authorities do to ensure the safety of these migrants hoping to get onto buses to go back home, being intimidated by the anti-immigration groups, and I'm not going to name them, we all know who they are. There are, pockets of these groups arriving at these places where the migrants are awaiting transport back home and intimidating the migrants there. Is there anything at all that we can do to stop this type of intimidation, knowing that these people are in such a desperate situation and all they're wanting to do is try and get their families, their loved ones, back home to what they deem would be safety for them?
Well, I think it's not just about protecting migrants who are repatriating or migrants in general. It's about creating a more orderly, safe, and humane and dignified process for people who are repatriating or being deported. And I think that government as a whole, the response has been, on the one hand, to wait and see, which is not landed well, because we've seen that by not preparing for this moment adequately, it only causes more chaos. I think that government has wildly underestimated just how much intimidation there has been, just how
Okay, we've lost Tessa's sound there. Let's go for a quick ad break. When we come back, we'll reconnect with Tessa Dooms. She is with the Rivonia Circle. We're talking about, obviously, more than 160 organizations are uniting against xenophobic violence. There is a press conference, an urgent press conference that's going to happen this morning, and hopefully we will be able to bring you that news as well later in the day. Please stay with us.
You know, it's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study? As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil, triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
More than 800 million people around the world live in deep poverty, uncertain of where the next meal will come from. For those on the brink of starvation, a food pack means survival, dignity, and hope. Send food, send kindness. Be the reason a family does not go hungry. Donate now to Islamic Relief.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Are you banking with convenience, transparency, and flexibility? With Al Baraka Bank's transactional banking account, you can enjoy convenient everyday banking designed around your needs. Benefit from zero fees on point-of-sale transactions and manage your banking easily through Al Baraka's secure mobile banking app and internet banking platform. From everyday payments to managing your personal or business banking, Al Baraka makes banking simple, transparent, and convenient. Visit albaraka.co.za to learn more. Al Baraka, your partner bank. Al Baraka Bank Limited is an authorized financial services and credit provider.
Africa. Give the gift of clean water with Africa Muslims Agency. With every water well or borehole you donate, your drop becomes a river, reconnecting communities to nourishment, education, dignity and empowerment. Sponsor a water well for 17,000 Rand in Africa or a borehole for 65,000 Rand in Afghanistan or Africa. Quench the thirst. Reconnect the soul with Africa Muslims Agency.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
It is exactly 19 after 8 o'clock, and yes, we've got her back online, and that's you, Tessa Dooms. Thank you for reconnecting. You are with the Rivonia Circle. We're talking, obviously, about this situation, this horrific situation playing out here in South Africa, and also particularly today after you respond to my question before we took the ad break regarding the campaign to host a national press conference ahead of tomorrow, and that of course is being initiated by Siafana Sonke Action Campaign. Over to you and your response.
As I was saying, the state has a responsibility here, not only towards migrants, but towards all of us as people in this country, because without planning for the shift that this would cause, the dynamics it would cause in terms of people wanting to repatriate, people not having the resources to do so, intimidation and violence that is going unchecked, we are now ending up with situations that could cause chaos in our cities. In fact, having large numbers of people in camps, in buildings, all of that, and having the intimidation that you're talking about ongoing is definitely causing an issue. And so one of our calls as Siafana Sonke has been to government to have a more coordinated response at a national level. And this means a lot more coordination between Home Affairs, DIRCO, because the embassies are doing repatriations. And so DIRCO needs to step in a lot more. But also, as you said, because we have incidents this week in the city of Joburg, 3 babies were born as we were trying to put people onto buses that Home Affairs had gotten for repatriation purposes. 3 babies were born on those as we were doing the buses. So we need social services involved. We need the Minister of Health involved and the health services involved. We need legal services involved so that where there are decisions that need to be made about how to process people so they don't get turned away at the border, all of those things need to come as part of the package of support and the package of coordination that the national government does provide. But also a great appeal to municipalities. And I'm really asking for mayors and mayoral councils to step up. It seems that local government is taking a hands-off approach to all of this, and it is not helpful because disaster management is most effective when it is done at the local level, and we are just not seeing our cities coming to the party. We are not seeing disaster relief teams showing up. Halls are not being made available by the state. We are not seeing a quick enough response that is trying to coordinate between what's happening at the very local community level. And it's creating panic and anxiety in communities. So we've worked with many local councillors over the last week, and it's been astounding to me that local councillors, ward councillors, do not feel that they have the liberty to pick up the phone and call for disaster management in the city that they are councillors in. They do not have the ability to call on MMCs and get them to actually rally resources and make sure that their communities can feel confident that the state is handling these things. And I think we have to appeal to mayors all over the country because it's not only happening in a few cities. There's a possibility here of a range of issues coming up in a range of contexts to please get involved, not only because there are vulnerable migrants in this story, but because the communities that are affected by this are vulnerable communities in general. And they've always deserved the response of the state, and they deserve the response of the state this week as well.
The sad reality, obviously, is that people like yourself and other civic organizations see the situation exactly for what it is. We know what is required to create a calm, peace and calm, and try to the best of our abilities to get illegal migrants repatriated without intimidation, violence, and other such xenophobic attacks. I did also put a question to you earlier on regarding these groups that are going around to these centers, continuing their intimidation towards the migrants. Is there anything at all that our local authorities are able to do to stop such sort of intimidation?
Well, I first want to make an appeal to immigration groups and immigration advocacy groups that, number one, whatever it is that we want, that we should all be directing our attention at the state. And that when we encourage or fail to discourage people doing direct intimidation in communities, we've heard mobilization calls and voice notes that speak directly to the idea that people are being told to go into people's yards and find people and intimidate people either in their homes or in the places that they are renting at. And that just simply does not help because it opens up space for criminal elements. And I'm really appealing that community leaders take that into account. But also that once people have voluntarily decided to leave, and we are trying to, number one, congregate them in places that are both safe for them and safe for the community, that they do not come into those spaces to continue putting intimidation and pressure. We had a group show up at 3 a.m. At a place where we were housing women and children. We were only housing women and children. And we had a group show up at 3 a.m. wanting to disrupt the space. We've had groups say that they're going to burn down buildings where migrants are being housed while they're being processed. It simply is not helpful to the situation to continue to inflame tensions in that way. But in terms of the state's response, SAPS, we need to know what SAPS's standing orders are when it comes to this, because at this point, we vacillate between community members telling us that people are coming into their community who they don't even know and are threatening South Africans to say that South Africans must produce migrants, and then come there with the police in tow to say that kind of message. Yesterday, somebody was told blood will be shed in Kliptown by people who don't live in Kliptown if they come back and find migrants there on Tuesday, and the police were there as part of that group of people. And so we need to know what the police's standing orders are when it comes to intimidation, threats, etc. And also that that there is some kind of response that is made that just helps us manage the situation, especially when people are voluntarily repatriating.
So let's talk about the National Press Conference. What are we expecting at the conference, and do you think it's going to make a difference?
Well, what we are doing this conference for is two distinct things. One is to talk about the processes that we've been involved in terms of repatriation and etc. And many of the issues that I've mentioned today, just so that there's more public awareness about what is being done and where the gaps are and what we can put pressure on, especially from the state, to do in this moment. But the second thing is also that we are calling on community leaders of all different persuasions, whether it's faith-based community leaders, people who are leading civic groups, etc., to, within the next week, really spend time engaging directly with communities. Within the network of Siafana Sonke, there's been community meetings held, there's been engagements done with communities. Communities are divided on these issues, and it really does require active leadership at a time like this. It's not enough to send out social media messages. We are going to have to gather as our communities and talk things through and talk things out, but particularly making sure that people who seek to do harm in our communities, who don't even live in our communities, do not have the final say on what happens in local communities. And so we really are calling for community leaders to please step up and safeguard your communities from any elements that seek to be disruptive.
People who are very confused about what's going to happen tomorrow, myself included, I kind of asked my producer this morning, do we have a show tomorrow or not? Because there's just so much uncertainty. Are we safe to be on the roads? However, having said that, I received communication, or rather we as media have received communication from the National Taxi Association suggesting that it's business as usual tomorrow, that they are appealing to all of their commuters. It will be and it is safe to go to work. And it's going to cost not only the Taxi Association, but the South African community at large. It's going to cost us, a lot of, it's going to cost us monetarily and otherwise, obviously. There's going to be huge implications on costs all around if the taxi services are disrupted. It was very well worded, and they are appealing for people to get onto the taxis, go to work, and it is business as usual. What do you make of that, knowing that there is still so much of uncertainty around this issue? My second question, and it is the final question before we wrap up, is there is also talk on the ground that because the police don't seem to know which way they are meant to be supporting civil society or their communities, that the SANDF might be brought in. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that the Taxi Association is trying to do what government is also trying to do, which is encourage as much normalcy as possible. In fact, March and March have also encouraged normalcy in that they are talking about their organized marches and discouraging people from getting involved in marches that are not formally organized by March and March. At least I've heard that from their leaders particularly. But it's worth noting, number one, that March and March is not the only group that that deals with migration issues. And so they are not the final authority on what every group will do. Secondly, there are political leaders and political parties who are also organizing, and they are not necessarily going to be listening to what a March and March leadership may say, even if they say that what should be done is coordinated marches that are on the books. We do know, for example, in eThekwini, we've heard of 15 marches that have been applied for there. I don't think all of them have been approved. But for me, that's not the concern. I think that we also have to listen to March and March when they say that they are not in charge of everything that is going to happen or could be organized in the last few days and tomorrow. And so we must be wary of people who act in the name of particular groups that have prominence, but are not necessarily listening to or under the instruction of those groups. And that for me is the more concerning element. It's not the organized protests that I'm most worried about. It is the unorganized, spontaneous protests that where we don't know who to hold accountable that I'm most worried about, and that opens the door for criminal elements. And I really think that that's where all of our attention should be and focus should be on making sure that that is minimized in as much as it is possible, because at this point, even people who started this movement and this moment are not sure about what's going to happen tomorrow. And so vigilance is absolutely key. I think we all are hoping that we don't get to the point where the SANDF would be called upon, because if that does happen, we will be back in July 2021 territory. And it won't happen tomorrow, but if it does happen, it will be because we've been in an active situation of rioting for at least a week or so before we see the SANDF. So let's hope we don't get there and that calm prevails.
Tessa Dooms, that's where we leave it. You from the Rivonia Circle. Thank you indeed for your insights on this matter. And yes, I think all of South Africa are putting their hands together, hoping and praying that this tomorrow will be a calm, peaceful day and business as usual. God bless. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
8:33 News and Views moving along. Let's go for a break. And when we come back, we are going to be moving north into Africa, and we're going to be talking to a journalist and editor at Gigesi News, and it is about press freedom under fire in Uganda.